Hi, I'm Ed Sceery. In the following video, I discuss elk behavior and communication. I also talk about the best methods I've found for hunting and calling elk.
Welcome to Ed Sceery's High Country Outdoor Classroom. Sit back and get comfortable as Ed, one of America's well-known authorities on elk and elk hunting, reviews the many details that are sure to make your elk hunt a great success. Besides having a doctorate degree in animal science, Ed has over 30 years of hunting and research experience with elk and other wild and domestic animals. He has worked at several universities, for the U.S. Forest Service, and for the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish. He has been president and owner of the Sceery Game Call Company for the past 18 years. The information packed into this video is a combination of traditional hunting techniques and new information Ed has gathered through countless hours of field research and hunting experience. Now let's join Ed in the high country of the Rocky Mountains.
Buenos dias. I'm Ed Sceery. We're at about 10,000 feet this morning in the high country. With all these spruce, aspen, and pine here, it's pretty rough working up here, but somebody's got to do it. We're going to talk a little about elk hunting this morning, so let's find us a place to sit down and get started. There's very few activities that my hunting buddies and I find more enjoyable than a high country elk hunt. A successful elk hunt is a lot more than just getting a good elk. It's an opportunity to spend a lot of time in the mountains away from town with your close friends. I particularly enjoy the sights, the smell of the pine trees, the beautiful scenery, and having the opportunity to see and observe a lot of wildlife. When I think back over the past and the many fall hunting seasons, I try to put together in my mind what are the many little details that go into successfully hunting elk. When I do that and review some of the photos and videos of the past hunting seasons, it quickly becomes clear that what my friends and I enjoy is not just successfully hunting elk, but what I call a successful hunt. You see, there's a lot more involved in a successful hunt than just taking a nice trophy. As a matter of fact, as I think back over my past hunts, the greatest pleasure that I've derived from my hunting experience is the time spent with my close friends in the mountains. Each year we get away from the routine of work in town and we meet in the high, cool mountains to experience some special time together. We also enjoy the time spent hunting, calling, stalking, and taking elk. As I relate to you some of the things that I've learned about hunting elk, I also want to share with you some of the many experiences that my hunting buddies and I have had in the mountains. As a means to share some of this with you, I'll put in some short video clips and some photos of some of my past elk hunts. I hope that this will give you a real feel for what I call elk hunting. The planning for our elk hunts is probably the most important thing we do to ensure a successful hunt. It most often begins about a year ahead of the actual hunt. There are a lot of things that go into putting together a quality elk hunt. One of the first things you'll need to do is choose your hunting companions. Maybe you're going to be with one of your longtime hunting buddies. Maybe you're planning on taking one or more of your family members. In any case, think it through. Be sure your companions are physically up to the task and somebody whose company you'll enjoy. You need to decide what your goals are going to be. There's a big difference in the goals of different hunters. Some hunters aren't going to be satisfied unless they return home with a monster trophy, while other hunters are perfectly happy to return home with a cow elk. This is particularly true with bow hunters. Other hunters don't feel a need to kill an elk each year they hunt and just enjoy the opportunity in the outdoors for a week or two. Decide what kind of hunt you want to have. A high-priced, fully guided luxury hunt or a relatively low-cost, self-guided hunt on public land. All elk hunting is going to require an investment of time and money. How much time and money you invest is up to you and may play a role in the personal satisfaction you get from your hunt. If your goal is to get a record book elk and money is not a big concern, it's certainly possible to find an outfitter who will nearly guarantee you a trophy bull. The same thing can be accomplished if you don't want to spend a lot of money. You can still have a good chance at taking a trophy bull, but you're going to have to invest more time in planning, preparation, and developing your hunting skills. The first thing you need to decide on is where are you going to hunt. Most elk hunting is done in the Rocky Mountain states from Arizona and New Mexico north into Canada. You may wish to read magazine articles on elk hunting, talk to your friends that have hunted elk, or contact the various state game and fish agencies. All of these are good sources for information. You'll need to get hunting proclamations, applications, and information from a guide or outfitter long before fall hunts. This part of planning is usually done 6 months or more before the hunt. Plan to do this in late winter and early spring. You'll need to decide the specific location you're going to hunt and get maps and other local information. Make phone calls to local game wardens or to area U.S. Forest Service offices. Find out what the success rate has been in the areas you are considering hunting. Hunter success rates differ widely between areas and may vary from less than 10% to nearly 100%. Game and fish departments will usually provide you with success rate information. You may also find this available in various hunting almanacs. If you're not using the services of a guide or outfitter, it's advisable to scout the area shortly before the hunt. Elk will occasionally move out of an area entirely. Just because you find elk in an area, don't count on them to be there at a later date. Scout the area shortly before the hunt to be sure. Booking an elk hunt with an outfitter can make this a lot easier, but it's often done a year in advance. Sometimes openings may come up that require less lead time. Most game and fish departments can provide you with a list of guides and outfitters in their states, but just don't pick any outfitter. I'd suggest that you do some checking on references and find out from some of their past clients how the hunts have gone. You'll have your choice of weapon to use for elk hunting, which may be rifles, muzzleloaders, or bows. When you're trying to decide on what rifle to hunt elk with, most guides and outfitters in the western states will tell you that you need at least a .30 caliber or larger rifle. Whichever weapon you choose, you'll need to do plenty of pre-hunt practice. You'll need to be both comfortable and proficient with your weapon long before the hunt starts. You'll also need to be in good physical shape for most elk hunting. You'll likely be hunting in high altitudes and on steep, rough terrain. Don't wait till the last minute to start getting in shape. Frequent hikes of a mile or more a day are probably the best way to do this. Be sure to use the same footwear you plan to take on your hunt. Don't ever take new boots on your hunt. Always break them in first. Be sure you have footwear that will keep you dry in wet weather and plan to use thick wool socks. There's all kinds of equipment and gear that you'll likely need for your hunt. This may vary depending on the style of elk hunt you select and the location of your hunt. In any case, because of all the gear involved, I always recommend you work up a checklist. I keep some spare copies of my personal elk hunting checklists in my office. If you'd like a copy, just phone my office and we'd be glad to send you a copy. For hunting in the Rocky Mountains, you'll most likely be faced with a wide range of weather conditions. Temperatures may range from upwards of 90 degrees for early September bow hunts to temperatures well below zero on later fall and early winter hunts. Most every high country hunter plans for both dry and wet weather conditions. Snow, hail, rain, and strong winds are common throughout late summer and fall. Plan for a variety of extreme weather conditions. Be sure to check the weather report just before you leave so you won't have any surprises. You'll need to give some consideration to your transportation. If you and your hunting buddies will be driving to a high country elk camp, a four-wheel drive pickup truck is considered a basic requirement. There are a lot of hunters these days that enjoy taking their 3- and 4-wheelers to elk camp. If you plan on taking one of these little mechanical pack horses, use it responsibly. Various types of tents or small camp trailers will work for you and make your high country stay enjoyable. If you purchase a new tent, be sure to practice setting it up at home before heading up in the mountains. It's also a good idea to seal the seams on a new synthetic tent and to completely wet down canvas tents a couple times to swell the fabric fibers before taking them into the mountains. Your camp food and beverage list should be prepared long before your hunt. I normally recommend that a daily meal-by-meal list be made for your entire hunt and include some extra food for camp guests or emergencies. There's a whole pile of other equipment and supplies you'll need. You'll need good cook stoves and cooking gear and lanterns. Your sleeping bag is important. Plan on having a good bag and a foam pad or cot to sleep on. Don't skimp or cut corners on your sleeping gear. Most novice hunters don't realize how cold and damp it gets in the high country of the Rocky Mountains. There's a whole list of little things you'll need. Day packs, fanny packs, knives, cords, compasses. You'll need flashlights, binoculars, game calls, small cigarette lighters, first aid kits, shaving stuff, and any other medication that you might need. Elk are the largest cervids of North America. They're ungulates or split-hooved animals and are a member of the deer family with the scientific name Cervid canadensis. When you head out on your elk hunt, you'll be going after some pretty big game animals. You can expect a good-sized bull to be upwards of 800 pounds or more. If you're an eastern deer hunter and not used to the size of elk, you're in for a big surprise. Elk are large animals. If you plan on hunting on foot, remember packing elk out to your vehicle can be quite a chore. I think it's important for you to remember that it can take one guy all day long to pack a bull elk just a quarter of a mile. Elk stand about 5 feet tall at the shoulders and are generally light brown. Bulls are frequently seen with dark head, necks, manes, and legs. The body hair coat of bulls is often lighter than the bodies of cows. So when hunting for bulls, pay particular attention to the color of their hair coat and watch out for the lighter colored animals. This is particularly true in low light conditions. Probably the most distinguishable characteristic of elk is their white rump patch. As a matter of fact, the Indian name of elk, wapiti, refers to an animal with a white rump. If you're scoping out an area for elk, the white rump patch is usually the first thing you'll see. Bull elk have pretty impressive antlers that can easily weigh upwards of 15 pounds. Elk sign or droppings are oval pellets similar to that of deer, but about twice the size, and diet can make a big difference. Some experienced elk hunters can tell the difference between bull and cow droppings. Bull droppings are larger pellets indented on one end and often found in clumps, rather than a number of single oval pellets like those of cows. When hunting the different western states, elk habitat may vary quite a bit. You'll find elk in most all western habitats. You'll find elk in high grassy meadows, in marshy meadows, along meandering streams. You'll find them in aspen groves, in spruce up on high north slopes. You'll find them in ponderosa pine forests, down in juniper pinon country, and way down in sagebrush flats. One of the old sayings of elk hunting is go where the grass is. And I think that's good advice, but I'd add go where the water is. When trying to locate elk, there are a number of things we look for. We look for game trails, elk tracks, sign or droppings. We look for tracks along watering holes. We look for fresh rubs, broken saplings. We look for wallows. We check the fences for sign that elk are in an area. We may check for elk beds. We look for all of these things when trying to locate elk. The scent or odor of elk is important. Most experienced elk hunters can smell an elk a long way off. When we talk about elk hunting, we refer to 3 time periods. These all revolve around the breeding season, or the rut. These 3 time periods are the pre-rut, the rut, and the post-rut. Pre-rut hunting will generally be during warm weather prior to mid-September. Usually this is bow hunting season. Bulls are usually separated from the cows, but begin to gather their harems at this time. During the pre-rut, you'll find the bulls hanging out in the thickest, coolest areas of the forest. During this time, we use non-aggressive bugles to locate bulls from a distance, and when we get an answer from a bull, we then stalk in close and use cow calls to call bulls within bow range. Using high-pitched cow calls alone without doing any bugling is one of the most effective ways to call in bulls during the pre-rut period. Do your hunting and calling in dark timbered north slope areas during the pre-rut. The bulls that will become the herd bulls later in the season can be called in during the pre-rut season. During the rut from mid-September to mid-October, the bulls will begin moving out of the thick timber and will be in the more open areas of the forest with the cows. Once you've located some cows, you can be confident that there are bulls nearby. During the rut is about the only time that I would suggest you do any loud dominant bugling. While it most likely won't work on the dominant herd bull, it can be particularly effective for calling in satellite bulls. Herd bulls in control of a harem of cows have little or no reason to respond to your elk calling efforts. It's great fun to talk about calling in herd bulls, but it doesn't happen very often. I'd suggest you don't spend a lot of time trying to call herd bulls away from their cows. The combination of using non-aggressive bull bugling and cow calling is an excellent way to attract bulls to you. I don't want to lead you astray. Many bow hunters consider any elk they take to be a trophy, and that includes cow elk. There seems to be a general misconception about the bulls in an elk herd. Generally, one bull has dominant control over a harem of 10 to 20 cows during the rut. This bull is referred to as a herd bull. His dominance over the cows and other nearby bulls is first established during the pre-rut period. At this time, the dominant herd bull is generally the larger, stronger, more masculine and aggressive animal. Along with the dominant masculine characteristics is a tendency for this bull to have one of the larger racks in the herd. Other nearby bulls which constantly challenge the herd bull for the cows are called satellite bulls. These satellite bulls may range from raghorns to bulls with antlers larger than the herd bull in control of the harem. The bull in control of the harem most often changes a number of times as the breeding season progresses. A bull that is a satellite bull this week may be destined to become the herd bull next week, so don't get hung up trying to distinguish which is which. If I'm hunting for a trophy, I don't care if the bull is in control of a harem or not. I look for a large bull. If you're hunting for a trophy-sized bull, he may be the herd bull, a satellite bull, or a lone bull out in the forest. Herd bulls are nearly impossible to call away from their harems of cows. They've got no reason to leave the cows. In fact, they spend all their time protecting the cows and keeping them away from other bulls. When a herd bull hears another nearby bull bugle aggressively, its first instinct is to move away from the intruding bull and take the cows with him. The herd bull may push the cows away, or the cows may lead the herd bull away, but in either case, they leave the area. That's the behavior of herd bulls. Satellite bulls are a different story. During the rut, these bulls, which again have antlers as large or larger than the herd bull, are often out in search of cows to breed. In any case, don't go elk hunting with the idea that to get a large trophy bull, you have to take a bull that's in control of a harem of cows. Combining non-aggressive bugling with cow calling is also effective during the rut. I make a couple of non-aggressive bugles, and then I do some cow calling for the next 30 minutes. During the post-rut hunting seasons, which will be after mid-October, the bulls will again move away from the breeding herd. Most of the large bulls will be worn down and tired out from the month of challenging other bulls for the cows and the heavy breeding activity that goes along with the rut. Let's talk a minute about using elk calls and how close you need to be to an elk to get a good shot. Remember, this depends upon the weapon you're hunting with. If you're hunting with a bow or muzzleloader, your game calls will be used to locate elk and will be very important to help you lure or call them to within close range. Because very close range shots aren't needed by rifle hunters, the primary use of a bugle is to locate bulls. Once you've located a bull, by getting him to answer your bugles or cow calling, you should attempt to stalk quietly to within 200 yards with a rifle. Locating bulls with bugles is effective during the pre-rut and the rut, but not very effective at other times of the year. Bulls can be heard bugling occasionally at any time of the year, but the great majority of bugling occurs during the rut. No matter what your choice of weapon, a cow call is important and can help you stop or turn elk for a good clean shot. One of the most important techniques to improve your chances for success is to hunt the most remote locations you can find. It doesn't matter what kind of weapon you use or the season, you nearly always do better hunting remote areas. There's several good reasons for this. The largest bulls you're going to find are those that have survived to their older years by taking advantage of the protection remote areas of the forest provide. Deep, dark timber, steep canyons, and rugged areas are where you're most likely to find a big trophy bull. One of the quickest ways to identify remote areas is to check out maps of the forest. Look for rough country away from roads. Whether you're hunting in wilderness areas, public land, or on private land, it's a good idea to seek out the remote areas of the forest to hunt in. Another good reason for this is to avoid interference by other hunters. You don't want to be near the end of a perfect stalk only to have another hunter mess it up. In any case, all elk prefer quiet, undisturbed areas. If your intent is to take a large bull, you have to go where they hang out. That's in the most remote areas. But remember, you may have to pack out a monster bull, so plan to have some help available. If you have a choice, hunt elk uphill from your camp or from logging roads. It's a heck of a lot easier to drag a big elk down a hill than it is to pack one up a mountainside. If you have horses available to pack an elk out with, it will open up hunting areas to you that otherwise would be foolish for you to hunt. I've seen the meat of several large trophy elk spoil in the heat because they were too difficult to pack out quickly during a warm season hunt. Elk meat can spoil in a matter of just a few hours. This is particularly true during the early bow hunts that begin in late August. So be sure you have a plan in place on how you're going to care for the meat after a kill. Elk are most active late in the evening, during the nighttime hours, and in early morning. While you can hunt all day, your hunting effort should be concentrated in the early morning hours. Normally we suggest that you start hunting for elk prior to sunup and hunt until about 11 o'clock or 11:30 in the morning. If you get an elk, you'll have daylight available to work with for tracking or packing it out. If you have to track a wounded animal, you'll have a much easier time doing it during the daylight hours. Tracking at night is basically impossible, and animals can spoil overnight during warm weather. The weapon you hunt with will play a role in your specific hunting techniques. If you hunt with a rifle or muzzleloader, you won't need to get nearly as close to an elk as when bow hunting. Rifle hunters should be within 200 yards, muzzleloaders within 100 yards, and bow hunters within 40 yards. I believe you should be able to consistently hit an 8-inch paper plate at those distances with your respective weapons. Do your practicing before the hunt until you can consistently hit that target. When you're hunting from a stand or a blind, it's important to pick a location where you are well concealed and have a good view of the area. Be sure to get comfortable, as you may have to sit there for many hours. Avoid moving around in your blind, as the noise you make may spook nearby elk. Many muzzleloaders and bow hunters do well by setting up a blind prior to the hunt, a known distance from a well-used game trail, a wallow, or a watering hole. Most often when elk hunting, I prefer what is called still hunting. I move very slowly through the forest, spending most of the time remaining very quiet and still. I spend the time watching, listening, and testing air for the scent of elk. Finding a prominent location and using binoculars or spotting scope is an excellent way to locate elk if the country is open enough. When scoping out an area, pay particular attention to the edges of meadows, the edges of watering holes, and the edges of streams. Shot placement is important. Be sure you have an unobstructed shot. Always aim for the heart and lung area. Shots right behind the shoulder are preferred. Shots taken directly at the shoulder with a bow, rifle, or muzzleloader should be avoided. Try to avoid taking any shots at elk while they're moving. If an elk's moving, most often they can be stopped by blowing on a cow call. They will very frequently turn and provide you with an excellent shot. This technique of using cow calls holds true for both cows and bulls. If you're going to be hunting with a rifle, long-range rifle accuracy can be greatly improved by using a good bipod. Don't ever take long-range shots without a good rest. You can use logs or rest your rifle on a branch of a tree, but be sure if you're taking a long-range shot to use a rest of some kind. If you can't estimate distances, you may want to carry along a rangefinder. In regards to distances, I'd suggest you spend some time prior to your hunt reviewing the ballistics or flight path of your bullet or arrows. This will help you understand the importance of estimating distance to assure a good shot. When you spot elk or locate a bull by hearing a bugle, you need to put together a plan of action. This most often includes calling and stalking. In stalking, you need to be aware of three things: the ability of elk to smell you, to see you, and to hear you. It's my strong belief that most hunters underestimate by a long way the ability of an elk to sense danger. Your first and foremost concern is how to get within good shooting range without being detected. You need to be aware that most often the wind swirls in the mountains, and hunting from a downwind or a crosswind side is extremely difficult. However, stalking elk can be very successful during strong winds that prevent the animal from detecting you. A common mistake made by even experienced hunters is not watching out for other elk in the area during a stalk. Many times, your attention is directed and focused entirely to the bull you're stalking. You fail to see some cows or other nearby bulls until you spook them and chase all the elk away. When elk hunting, particularly with a bow, it's a good idea to help mask your odor. We usually store our camo clothes overnight in plastic trash bags that contain a few pine needles. We also will make a point while we're hunting to occasionally step in fresh elk droppings. A good method of using pine scent as a cover is to pop the blisters of sap on white pine trees and spread this strong scented sap on your clothing. If someone in your camp kills an elk, cut a small tuft of hide from the underside of a bull or around the tail of a cow. Pin this to your pack for a couple of days of hunting. If you're bow hunting, it would be wise to avoid campfires and other smoke. While hunting, do your best not to spook the elk in the area. When you spook elk, they tend to run a long way off. I hear a lot of elk hunters telling me that elk are getting call wise these days, and they're not as responsive to bugling as they used to be. You should remember that elk will get call wise to any type of bugle or cow call, so it's my strong advice for you not to overdo it. Keep your calling to a minimum if you want your calling efforts to be productive. When you practice blowing your elk bugle in camp, there's a good possibility that you're educating every bull within a couple of miles. When you blow on a bugle to locate elk, make one good, clear, crisp bugle, and then be quiet and don't make any noise. A lot of times, a nearby bull will not answer your calls for quite some time. Give them a fair chance to respond. Those guys that blow on their bugles over and over all morning as they tromp through the forest drive me crazy. They sound neat, but what they're doing is they're chasing all the elk away. When you blow on a large, aggressive-sounding bugle, what's the expected response? What do you expect the bulls to do? From my experience, the expected response is that most elk in the area, both bulls and cows, will move away from your location. Occasionally they'll come to you, but most of the time, the bulls and cows will leave the area. And I'm sure that many of you have already figured this out after some years in the mountains hunting. Bugling for elk doesn't work nearly as good as you may have been led to believe. But it does work 10% of the time, so don't run out and throw your bugles away. We all carry bugles with us when we hunt. We think they're an important tool to have. Cow calls are about the most effective tool currently available for attracting elk to your position. Remember, cow calls are intended to attract bulls. Many novice elk hunters think that a cow call is made to call cow elk in, and that's not true. A cow call is made for the purpose of calling bulls. Cow calls produce sounds that cows, calves, and bulls will make, and the primary purpose of a cow call is to attract bulls to your location. If you're a bow hunter and you're going out after cow elk, it will also attract other cows, so I'd use it for that purpose too. I'd suggest you make elk talking sounds while you're stalking in on an elk. Elk make noise while they move through the forest. Don't chase after bulls. If you're having the problem of bulls leaving or moving away from you when you bugle, your best bet is to circle way around in front of them and ambush them. Pressing bulls that are going away from you will most often get them moving faster. Well, the wind's picked up a little bit, so I think it's time I headed out. But before I go, I'd like to remind you to be a good sportsman. Pay particular attention to your local game and fish laws, respect the rights of private property owners, and above all, be careful with your firearms and other weapons. Adios, y que te vaya bien en la casada.
For a free color catalog of the Sceery line of professional game calls, other audio and videotapes, or for information on hunting seminars, phone or write the E.J. Sceery Company in Santa Fe, New Mexico. E.J. Sceery Company, P.O. Box 6520, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87502-6520. Or phone toll free, 1-800-327-4322.